This is the Voice of Turkey's English language transmission broadcasting from Ankara in the 49-meter band between 1830 and 1930 UTC on 5945 kHz to Europe, between 2030 and 2130 UTC in the 31-meter band on 9875 kHz to South Asia and Australia, between 2200 and 2300 UTC in the 31-meter band and on 9830 kHz to Europe, Eastern USA and Canada, and in the 25-meter band on 11660 kHz between 1630 and 1730 UTC to Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. The Voice of Turkey is also beamed between 0300 and 0400 UTC in the 41-meter band and on 7275 kHz to Europe, the USA, Eastern Canada and Cuba, between 0300 and 0400 UTC in the 49-meter band on 6165 kHz to Iraq, Syria, Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. You can listen to us over the Turksat 3A and 4A satellites and on the internet at www.trt.net.tr through the Voice of Turkey link. Please note that transmissions broadcast between 2200 and 2300 UTC and between 0300 and 0400 UTC have been pre-recorded. Our email address is englishdesk@trt.net.tr.
President Erdogan, Turkey leading determined and far-reaching anti-Daesh ISIS operations. Compared to the other countries in the world, Turkey carried out most determined and far-reaching operation against Daesh ISIS terror groups, said the country's president on Friday. Our National Intelligence Ministry of Interior and the Armed Forces have carried out most determined and far-reaching operations in the world against Daesh ISIS, Recep Tayyip Erdogan told reporters after Friday prayer in Istanbul, saying that the West has never conducted a proper operation in fight against Daesh ISIS terror group. Erdogan said, "They just keep talking about this matter. There is nothing else they do." Erdogan's remarks came shortly after Turkey captured one of the most important senior executives of Daesh ISIS terrorist organization, Bashar Kattab Ghazal al-Sumadiyari, codenamed Abu Zaid Master Zaid, on Thursday. Citing his talks with US President Joe Biden at the NATO summit in Madrid in June, Erdogan said the US President said he will extend all the support he can regarding F-16s, expressing hope for the US to not lead Turkey to different tracks. Erdogan said, "I mean, the US is not only country in the world that sells fighter aircraft. Countries like UK, France and Russia also sell fighter jets," he said, adding, "It is possible to obtain it everywhere. Some signal us for this." On a question regarding US CENTCOM's statement from September 7 urging the international community to support SDF against Daesh ISIS, Erdogan said the US unfortunately continues its wrong steps regarding SDF. He said he will discuss the issue with Biden during his visit to New York for the UN General Assembly. The Turkish president also expressed his intention to attend the funeral of the UK's late Queen Elizabeth II if his schedule allows. Russian attacks kill 5 in eastern Ukraine. Russian attacks in eastern Ukraine killed at least 5 people, including women, and injured 10 others, a local official said on Friday. Oleg Sinahubov, the head of the Kharkiv Regional Military Administration, said the Russian forces carried out missile and rocket attacks on the Kharkiv city center and the region at night. Meanwhile, Donetsk governorate said in a statement that Russian attacks in the region left 9 people dead and 23 wounded on Thursday. In a statement, the Ukrainian General Staff claimed that a total of 51,900 Russian soldiers have lost their lives since the start of the war, as 650 soldiers were killed in the past 24 hours. On March 25th, the Russian Defense Ministry said that 1,351 Russian soldiers died in Ukraine, but the data on the casualties were not updated afterward. Charles III formally proclaimed Britain's king. Britain's Charles III was formally proclaimed king at the Accession Council in London's St. James Palace on Saturday. The event was televised for the first time in history, and millions of Brits tuned in to watch the new monarch's proclamation. The ceremony also attended by the king's son, Prince William. The Accession Council is a group formed by privy councillors, great officers of state, the Lord Mayor of London, Royal High Commissioners, and the senior civil servants, which convenes after the death of the monarch. Queen Elizabeth II, Charles' mother, and the UK's longest-serving monarch, died on Thursday at the age of 96 after 70 years of the throne. Speaking about his beloved mother, the king said, "She gave an example of lifelong love and of selfless service. The whole world sympathized with me in the irreparable loss we all suffered," Charles said. The mother's reign was unequaled in its duration, dedication, and devotion. Even as a grief, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this deep inheritance on the grave duties and responsibilities which are now passed to me. Flood causes over $30 billion in damages, Pakistan tells UN chief. Pakistan said on Friday that the recent destructive flood caused more than $30 billion in damage, and that the country will need international assistance to rebuild its infrastructure. Major General Zafar Iqbal, the coordinator of the National Flood Response and Coordination Center, briefed Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and visiting UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres that the country received 518% more rain than usual during the monsoon season. 1/3 of Pakistan is submerged, and the damages will be far greater than the previous calamities, the official informed the two dignitaries during their visit to the NFRCC. While expressing solidarity with the government and the people of Pakistan, Guterres said humanity has declared war on nature and that nature is striking back, and he said nature is blind. It is not striking back on those who have contributed more to the war on nature. Pakistan has given little contribution to climate change, yet it is one of the most severely impacted hotspots by the consequences of the climate change, the UN chief said. Part of grain deal not being implemented, says Kremlin. The Kremlin said on Friday the Istanbul grain deal is partially being implemented as grain shipment from Ukraine via the Black Sea is being carried out, while Russian grain exports are not. Speaking at the press briefing in Moscow, Dmitry Peskov said the work is underway to prepare a meeting between Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Russian President Vladimir Putin, aiming to discuss the implementation of the grain deal. The meeting is expected to take place in Uzbek city Samarkand on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit scheduled for September 15 between 16, he said. Peskov further said that grain shipments from Ukraine did not go to poor countries, saying only 2 grain ships went to the countries defined as poor by the United Nations. Although the Russian food products and fertilizers are not under sanctions, the means of their transportation are, the spokesman added. De facto export of Russian food and fertilizers to international market is extremely difficult and very limited due to sanctions of Russian merchant ships that cannot enter ports. They are not insured. They are not accepted, and they are not serviced, he added. Turkey to send grain to Africa if Russian exports unblocked. Turkey will send grain and other relevant products to African countries in need if Russian exports are allowed through the Black Sea, the Turkish president said on Friday. Speaking to the reporters on the plane after his 3-day Balkan tour, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan enhawked his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin's view, saying Ukrainian grain is exported to wealthy countries, not those in need. Turkey, the UN, Russia and Ukraine signed an agreement in Istanbul on July 22nd to resume grain export for the 3 Ukrainian Black Sea ports, which were paused after the Russian-Ukraine war began in February. A joint coordination center with officials from the 3 countries and the UN was set up in Istanbul to oversee the shipments. Although not officially part of the deal, it was negotiated that once Russia allows the movement of ships through the Ukrainian ports, sanctions Russian export will be lifted. EU energy ministers' emergency meeting kicks off. The European Union needs a swift and unified response to energy crisis since there is no time to lose. In this difficult situation, Josef Sikela, the Czech deputy minister, said on Friday. Sikela, who also served as the Trade and Industry Ministry of the Czech Republic, spoke to the reporters on the way to the extraordinary meeting of the EU ministers in charge of energy affairs that he convened last week to tackle the crisis of the rising energy prices in the bloc. We are in energy war with Russia because Putin is manipulating the gas market, Sikela arrested, pointing out that this serious crisis threatens our way of life and also attacks our economy because there is higher energy demand than supply. Sikela expects EU energy ministers to be able to narrow down to set off a list of the measures so that they could mandate the European Commission to present legal draft and adopt it as soon as possible. If it happens, the EU executive body can come up with a proposal within days and we will have clarity by the end of the month, he added. On Wednesday, Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, revealed a so-called non-paper proposing to cut revenues of the energy firms and redistribute their extra profit to support vulnerable households and energy transition, as well as to provide immediate liquidity support for utility firms. The EU executive body also suggested capping the price of Russian gas that divided EU member states. And that was the news brought to you by the Voice of Turkey.